Before we begin talking about this game and why you should check it out on Kickstarter, I need to emphasize one thing. The game I'm showing you is currently in alpha, so there will be bugs and minor issues, therefore the footage I'm showing you is not the representation of the final product. Alright, now that the formalities are aside, let us begin. Highlands is a game currently being developed by Burrito Studios. This Kickstarter was initially created sometime toward the end of last month, and so far things are looking good for this indie team's Kickstarter, though they could still use a bit of a push. Burrito Studios promised their game to be a beautiful hand-drawn strategy game with unique characters, resource management, and RPG elements. And, well, they pretty much hit the nail on the head with that description. Aesthetically, the game looks beautiful. Its hand-drawn art style and individualized areas makes the game a joy to play through. And the world is so vibrant and full of color. Through what I played, I've enjoyed the visuals quite a bit and they never got tiring or unpleasant to look at for extended periods of time, which is a great thing because you're going to be playing for some long game sessions. As I said earlier, this is a strategy game with RPG elements. The game's Kickstarter describes the gameplay as a turn-based strategy game similar to the board game Risk, but with RPG elements thrown in. I've never played Risk before in my life, so unfortunately I will not be able to see any similarities. As for the gameplay, I actually really like how this game presents its mechanics. I don't feel as though it's too confusing for players to understand, and makes the game much more immersive. You start off in a small section of the map with a select few characters, each with their own specific trait that excel them in one of 3 areas. The characters can be great fighters that hit for a lot of damage, leaders that encourage others to join the army and produce goods to sustain them, or a mechanic that can produce barriers and weapons. You will find that each one of these classes are equally as important. No class should be overlooked as they all have their own benefits, much like how the mechanics can produce barriers to hold off enemy forces, if only for a little while, as well as produce weapons with scrap. Leaders are required to bring new recruits into the force, whether they bring combatants, mechanics, or other leaders. Leaders can also bring up morale in sectors to have them produce goods such as food, which is needed to keep up the morale and recruit new soldiers. I'm pretty sure there's some way to generate scrap as well, though I can't seem to figure it out myself. Combatants are exactly what they sound like, soldiers that fight for you when you need it. They have the most life and do the highest amount of damage than all the other classes, though aside from fighting they do have their own uses, such as standing in a territory intimidatingly to keep the enemy from advancing on you. It's also really easy to tell whether they can overpower you or not. The number that floats above each section is used to determine the number of power in that section. If your power is bigger than the nearest enemies, they won't fight with you simply from fear. To add on to this system, if you choose to have your soldiers fight them, that's when the turn-based battle elements come into play. At a glance, the system isn't too complicated. Your enemies typically come in swarms and each enemy has a certain amount of health. You can see their total health and your own on the battle screen. Though let me tell you that simply because you have more health does not necessarily mean you're in a better position. To put it simply, there is strength in numbers. The way you take damage in this game is actually rather interesting. As opposed to the enemy evenly damaging all of your characters, they only do damage to specific characters based on which one the player elects to take the damage. So where you might have 2 characters that when together have over 70 health, they might not be effective when against a large swarm of enemies as they'll whittle your health down rather quickly because of your small numbers. So in most cases, it's best to have a large group of soldiers take on a new area rather than a set few. There are also items that you can build to help you in battle. I only managed to use electro bombs during my playthrough, though they can be useful as they help destroy enemies relatively quickly. Weapons you build outside of battles can help increase stats of your characters and deal more damage for when they do enter battle. The difference in attack power is quite noticeable when you have a weapon. Once the battle is over, you conquer the territory they once had, and in turns also have access to that area's resources, allowing you to grow your army further. Though take note, once your battle is over, you are stuck with the amount of power you ended it with. So if your power has receded to something that is significantly lower, and surrounding areas from that new territory are stronger than you, they will try to contest you for that area once again. So make sure you're ready to tackle not only what you're trying to contest, but the area surrounding it as well, otherwise you might be putting yourself through an ordeal. Something I would recommend in these cases is to build a barrier around the area you already have before trying to contest another. So even if you're forced to flee from enemy troops, you have a line of defense as your soldiers heal. It should also be noted that your army can only grow if you have food. This is something I learned the hard way. As I played, I completely neglected the food factor and in turns was not able to recruit any soldiers. Food can only be gained by acquiring new sections of the map and generating resources from them. So no, you cannot stay at the spawn point and build your army large enough to take on the game easily. You need to take some risks before you can proceed. As for the story of the game, I'm not entirely sure yet. As according to the game's Kickstarter, there are two forms of storytelling in play here. Scripted sequences for each level that tell the story of our main characters, and random events that tell small little stories of townspeople and their struggles as the war rages on. Unfortunately, that's all I could gather from it. As it stands, there doesn't seem to be too much of a story, though I'm sure that due to the fact that it's in an alpha stage where they are focusing much more on the gameplay than the lore. I'm sure the final product's narrative will be much more fleshed out by its release date. In total, Highlands is a game that looks fantastic in the state it's currently in, and I'm excited for what the future holds for this game. At the moment, they are not incredibly far away from being funded, though they could still use a little push. If you would like to go fund this game, the link will be down in the description, as this game certainly looks like it will be worth a play.